on the Brown Bears Sports Network from Learfield IMG College. Welcome to the Brown Bears Podcast. Now, here's your host, Scott Cordischi.
Hello, everybody. Welcome to another edition of the Brown Bears Podcast. I'm your host, Scott Cordischi. Glad you could join us. The Brown Bears Podcast brought to you each week by Site Specific, a Rhode Island-based construction manager and general contractor. As a company, they value respect, trust, responsibility, humor, empathy, and excellence. Well, Brown fans, you probably saw this story on Brown Athletics social media channels last week. It did a lot of views, I can tell you that. We're happy to be joined this week on the podcast by three members of the Brown football team, class of 2015, and more importantly, 3/5 of Boat Racing LLC, a minority ownership group of Hot Rod Charlie, the horse that finished third in last weekend's Kentucky Derby. Riley Higgins, Patrick O'Neill, and Alex Coyes are with us. Pat, how are you?
Good, Scott. Thanks for having us on. It's such a blessing. We see this, each week, and we see them. You do these every month, and such distinguished alumni are on this this video Zoom that you do periodically. So such a blessing to be on today.
Well, thank you for being with us. Riley, how you doing?
Doing well, Scott. Thanks for having us. This is really cool and special to be on.
Well, Alex, or should I say Q? That's what I called you when I was the director of football operations. How you doing?
I'm doing fantastic, Scott. Thanks for having us. Just, coming off the week of a lifetime, back to our regular 9 to 5s, feeling a little bit unfulfilled this week compared to last, but, happy to have the memories in our back pocket that we'll cherish forever.
So, Alex, I learned something about you today, as a matter of fact. I had a chance to bump into Mike Goldberger, former Brown director of athletics, and he showed me a picture of Pete Chelovich simping on a mint julep at the Kentucky Derby last weekend. I didn't realize that you're Pete's nephew.
I am, yeah. Actually, I think I was on Goldie's boat when I was like 8 years old at my eldest cousin's Brown graduation in 2001. So come from a long family of Brown grads, and I've known Goldie since I was in elementary school. And so, yeah, it was great to have my Uncle Peter out of the Derby. And, I had 12 or 15 members of my family. I know that Pat had several members of his family, Riley from his, and then also Eric Armagast and Dan Giovacchini, who make up the other 2/5 of boat racing, had tons of family and friends of theirs from growing up. So I'm glad that the info got to Goldie, and I'm glad they made the connection between me and my uncle.
Riley, how many people with Brown football connections were at Churchill Downs last Saturday?
Well, if we're talking just like teammates of us five, we had probably 27, 20, 28. Wow. And then with a couple from other classes. And then we even had like family of our friends there. And so the Brown football contingent was very, very strong. We probably had around 50 people in total. And it was so fun to share the experience with all of them.
Pat, as I mentioned earlier, I posted the story of you guys that ran in the LA Times maybe a week and a half ago on social media on Saturday morning, just wishing you all and Hot Rod Charlie good luck in the Derby. And then later that day when NBC did the piece on you guys, I ran that as well. And those two things just went crazy. They blew up on Brown Athletics social media. People could not get enough of them. But what I loved about that piece that NBC did was how much fun you guys seem to be having with this. The footage they had from the Louisiana Derby when Hot Rod Charlie, qualified for the Kentucky Derby. Did he finish second in that race?
He finished first. He
finished first. He won it. So, and then you guys knew you were going to the Derby. To see you guys just jumping over the rails, hugging each other. I mean, that was awesome. It was just great raw emotion.
You can't put that moment into words, especially at the Louisiana Derby. We got into this endeavor, Boat Racing LLC, to really focus on brotherhood, right? We had such a special 4 years here at Brown, spending, every waking minute together. Woke up in the same house together. Scott woke up and went to practice together and saw Bro Neal, and he put us through the ringer, and loved that guy. He reached out a couple times. Then we went to breakfast together in the Ratty. Then we went to, then we went to class. Then we went to practice and watched film and saw Coach Keller and Coach Estes, and then went back and had dinner and the V-Dub. And then if we were fortunate and didn't have practice or games the next day, we would go have fun together as well. So that was a special time in our lives. And so we all kind of went in our separate ways, right? After graduation, we worked really, really hard to kind of make careers for ourselves. And we were very fortunate to be in the positions we were at the respective jobs that we were in. But there's nothing like, hanging out with your 4 best friends, as any Brown football player from the start of Brown football knows. And we got together down at Del Mar, spent an afternoon together, and it's a track in Southern California, if anyone doesn't know where Del Mar is. And my uncle, who I have a connection to in horse racing with, obviously, he's a thoroughbred horse trainer, ended up winning a race that day. So there's nothing like a day at the racetrack on an afternoon where you have, very great views, you got majestic horses, you're winning races, you have a couple adult beverages. And from that moment, we said, we don't want to be just like anybody else, Scott. We said, everybody goes on snowboarding trips. Everybody goes and, goes to Stagecoach or something like that. How can we take this brotherhood to the next level? And that's how Boat Racing LLC was started.
Now, to follow that up then, Pat, I understand that you were the one that was maybe most skeptical about it, because you've seen not just the highs, but you've seen the lows of horse racing and what it can do to people as well, right?
Doesn't look like a very smart thought at this point now, huh, Scott? But, yeah, so my grandpa started us in the sport, and he might have gambled a little bit too much. I'm named after him. I'd say it to his face if he were still with us today. But my dad, who is the oldest of 4 boys, ended up seeing the ramifications of his gambling. I think he lost my grandma and the family a couple houses. And so he was instantly kind of turned off by the sport. And, I had heard that from my dad growing up. He's like, you can love this sport, you can love what your uncles are doing, but I don't want you doing anything career-wise in horse racing. So I really listened to him, by the way. But my 2 youngest uncles ended up just falling in love with the sport at an early age, because I don't think they understood at the time what was happening from a family perspective. And from the very beginning, after high school, they ended up not going to Brown and went straight to Santa Anita University and started up picking up poop from horses, and started at the very bottom and slowly worked their way up to become the Kentucky Derby winning trainer that we know Doug to be, and the world-class bloodstock agent that we know Dennis O'Neill to be as well.
So Riley, that raw emotion I talked about in Louisiana, when you guys knew that you had made it to the Kentucky Derby, Q, I saw you in that piece on NBC saying maybe the greatest moment of your life, and I can completely understand why. But that emotion, it reminded me of when you guys played football, like against Cornell. You had a touchdown catch, and then you returned the onside kick for a touchdown. It was that type of emotion. It was just raw emotion. We're going crazy.
That's right. I mean, it's just pure passion. Like, passion drives so much of emotion and energy that you bring. So like at the track, we knew the ramifications of the race. If we got first or second, we're going to the Kentucky Derby. And we were not thinking about it from like a money perspective, or like, oh, a selfish, like this was going to be so fun for the 5 of us. We knew that if we get first or second in that race, that we're going to bring the entire Brown football class of 2015 to the race. We're going to bring all our families and friends, and it's going to be this amazing once in a lifetime experience. And so that is what drove the passion and energy at Louisiana that day. And I still get chills talking about it.
All right, Alex, I would be remiss if I didn't ask this question. Boat racing, I need to know what kind of drinking game this is here. Can you explain it to us?
Sure. Well, when we weren't on the gridiron, which is something that we committed ourselves to wholeheartedly, there were, times during the year where maybe winter workouts were getting us down, or, kind of the period between Thanksgiving and Christmas where we would have some fun times off the field. And boat racing is a very simple game for very simple men. It is essentially just a beer chugging relay race. So you start teams of 5. One end, 2 guys chug beers, and your partner's in front of you. You're not allowed to start chugging your beer until the person immediately before you finishes. You got to go down, but the twist that we put on it is each person had 2 beers, and you actually go down and back. So the 5th person in the line, who's the anchor, is chugging 2 beers back to back to send it back down the line. And usually culminate in a photo finish down at the wire, just like horse racing. So there was a little bit of an analog there. But, at the end of the day, it was something that galvanized us off the field, and something that we, enjoyed doing, that was kind of reminds us in frankly, Scott, and never in a million years did we ever think that we'd be sitting on a radio show trying to explain the namesake of our organization to anyone of any kind of like, distinguished, of any distinguishment. But it was something that just reminded us to stay grounded. It reminds us why we're doing this in the first place, which is to have fun and enjoy each other's company. And one thing I'll say is that, like, when we went to Kentucky Derby, when we kind of enjoyed all the company of our family and friends on the Friday night before the Derby, we felt like we had already won. It didn't matter if we came in first or if we came in 19th. It was what we set out to do at the beginning of our endeavor was, let's make memories, let's share experiences, and let's try to have the best time that we can with ourselves and with the people we love most. So we're very fortunate that Hot Rod Charlie came in third, but we feel like we won just because we brought so many people together and so many people who were so thirsty for a reunion, given that our 5 year was postponed, then what was supposed to be our 5 year / 6 year was made virtual and kind of coincidental. It fell on the same weekend, and people flocked to Churchill Downs for us, so we're very appreciative for it.
Is that a little pun there? Thirsty for a reunion, huh? In all seriousness, though, I mean, you guys were members of Fate, right? And look, being a part of that fraternity, being a part of the football team, and it was mostly football guys. I mean, that's one of the things that really brought you guys together and kept you guys together and allowed you guys to think of doing something like this. So correct me if I'm wrong. All 5 of you work in California, 2 in Frisco, 2 in LA, and Pat, are you in San Diego? Is that right?
Correct.
So how often do you guys get to see each other? Whether it's with horse racing or outside of it?
Prior to the establishment of this distinguished company, Boat Racing LLC, Scott, we probably saw each other, twice a year. We would text each other. We would be on the same texting chain with not just us 5, but certainly the rest of the Brown football class that we spent a bunch of time with at Providence. But it was few and far between. And every time we got together, Scott, it was like, wow, why don't we do this more, right? Life's too short. Like, we all had things happening in our lives that, are sad. We all are brothers to one another. And we're like, hey, we want to be here for each other each and every day. And so when we had these moments of just fun and enjoy each other's company, and Alex mentioned the fact that we were just focusing on people, memories, and experiences, something that we prided ourselves on. It wasn't until Boat Racing LLC was established where, we text maybe every other day on an average basis. During the Derby, kind of run up to the Derby, we were texting maybe 4 times a week or 4 times a day. We were getting on Zoom calls every other day saying, like, how do we put this person into this box? Who should be coming? How do we get Abe Dube to Louisville because, he might have a conflict work-wise, or Zach Sparber, who has, a football camp. He's in spring training at Duke University. So those are all fun reasons to be talking. And, we're so blessed, and Alex said this, that, we had this one individual, this horse, right, brought so many great people together. And we owe Chuck, who we infamously call him because he is a guy's guy. He definitely would have made Fate. He definitely would have been a starter on the football team. But we're so blessed to have Chuck just be kind of another brother within this fraternity, whether it's Fate, whether it's football, it doesn't really matter, but just within this great group of people that are in each and every one of our lives.
So just so you know, Chuck Hampton thinks that you named the horse after him.
Hey, I love that.
But Pat, since you bring up the sadness, I remember the day that your dad lost his battle with cancer. And can you explain to everybody watching and listening that you have a 6th partner in this Boat Racing LLC, because you donate 1/6 of whatever you guys earn to melanoma research?
Yeah, thank you Scott for bringing that up. So unfortunately, my dad passed about 2 weeks after I graduated from Brown, and he had been diagnosed after my sophomore year, and he was supposed to make it, 6 months. And due to the strength of, his resolve, due to his desire to keep living, due to his desire to, my mom says, see me graduate, he did make it 2 years. So kudos to him. And if anyone thought I was tough on the football field, I owe it all to, my dad. But, fast forward to this amazing experience that we're all on. I give all the credit to the world, to these guys, these brothers of mine. After we won the Louisiana Derby, Scott, we felt like, hey, look at this platform we're getting. We have NBC following us. All we did was buy a horse and go to Louisiana and enjoy each other's company. And so we felt to a degree that we didn't necessarily deserve kind of the notoriety we were getting, But, if we're going to get it, if people are interested in our story, we need to do something, or it's important to us to do something that's bigger than us, bigger than Hot Rod Charlie, bigger than the Kentucky Derby, bigger than Brown football. And so what that ended up being was just a charity of our choosing. And so we kind of got on the call 2 days after the race and said, what means a lot to us? And, fortunately, these guys said, hey, melanoma means a lot to you. We feel like, we met your dad when he would come to games. Coach Estes met, my dad. I remember him giving him a Brown football jersey. So what a kind gesture that he did there. But just generally, he was a part of the Brown football family. And because of his battle with melanoma at such a young age, and my other uncle actually passed the melanoma at the age of 38. And through this whole experience, actually, Scott, we're just meeting so many different people who have also been impacted by this horrific disease. Riley's dad's best friend recently passed. Mr. Sweet passed, within the last 18 months of melanoma also. So with this kind of platform, we said, hey, we have a chance to talk about melanoma. We have a chance to really raise awareness of how you can beat melanoma simply by wearing sunscreen, avoiding the sun, but also donate some money. So if you happen to have an individual that's impacted by this horrific disease, can they find cures? Can they find ways in which to combat this horrific disease when it does get to stage 1 all the way to stage 4? And so we partnered with the Melanoma Research Alliance, who to date, since 2011, has donated $123 million to research. None of the funds go to any of the employees. And I can confidently say today that it went from 2 cures back when my dad passed for stage 4 melanoma to 11. And so we feel very, very confident with this organization. And to your credit, Scott, we've kind of named this initiative that we're doing at Boat Racing LLC the Sixth Man Initiative. And so we're all sports fan. It happened to be right after March Madness. And we all know that the sixth man in basketball is the person who is the unsung hero, the gritty person in the group, the person who really probably deserves a lot of notoriety for the win that a team has, but doesn't get any. He's scrappy. And so that's kind of what we wanted to embolize, who not only my dad is, but anybody else who is stricken by this horrific disease of melanoma.
That's awesome. Riley, I know this isn't your first foray into horse ownership. You guys own 2 other horses prior to Hot Rod Charlie. Tell us how that went.
Yeah, we had 2. We got into it with 2 horses. One was Tell Me I'm Pretty, and the other one was named Impossible Task. Tell Me I'm Pretty was a filly who either didn't love to run or just couldn't run very fast. Not quite sure which one it was, but that wasn't a very good outcome for Boat Racing LLC, financially at least. And we parted ways after 6 to 9 months. And then the same thing happened with Impossible Task, but he did like to run a little bit faster. And we ended up recouping much of our initial investment back on him. And back then we were having the time of our lives still. Like, we were going to these races. We were still getting together, us 5. It brought us together just like we set out to do in the first place. And while those weren't the best financial outcomes, we would still be doing the same exact thing back then as we are now after the Kentucky Derby, because that's what we got into it for in the first place.
Alex, was your group's investment in Hot Rod Charlie kind of a last gasp or kind of your last chance? Had this not worked out with Hot Rod Charlie, do you think that would have been it?
Yeah, Scott, absolutely. You nailed it. It was like, okay, Tell Me I'm Pretty, sunk cost, lost everything. Impossible Task, in kind of a twist of fate, ended up being entered in what's called a claiming race, where anyone could buy the horse upon the beginning of the race. And someone bought Impossible Task for probably a lot more than he was worth, and kind of gave us one more bullet in the chamber, so to speak. And I'd be lying if it was like, this is 100% we should go on another horse. It just didn't add up in my mind's eye of like, okay, we've done this twice. We've seen kind of what the industry like just kind of chews people up and spits them out. They're not a ton of really lucrative investments here. Like, we've loved every step of the way. Like, these 2 horses have brought us together. It's been a fun ride for, the 12 months that it lasted. Should we just lick our wounds and walk away and credit to all four of the other guys. They were like, no, like this is like, we're going to enjoy this. We have enjoyed this. It doesn't matter what the outcome is financially. Like, this is an entertainment expense. Let's just go one more rodeo. And it was kind of like, hey, regardless what happens, like, we love each other. We trust each other. This is what we're doing this for, is for the memories and have a fun time. And like, what a ride it was. What a ride it still is. Like, Hot Rod Charlie, his first 4 races, he was terrible again. And we're like, goodness, same old, same old. And then he breaks out with a maiden win. He won a race for the first time and gets kind of a pity bid to go to the Breeders' Cup Juvenile. And he's 94-1 when the gates open. He comes in second place. And it's just like, holy smokes, we actually might have something here. But even then, it's like, we've kind of graduated from rookie ball into single A. And then we win the Louisiana Derby, which is kind of a triple A equivalent race, as kind of a second favorite. And we're going to the Derby, and Derby ran in third place, which is amazing. We beat 16 of the best horses in the world. And like, now we're on to the Belmont, and then like getting a little bit ahead of ourselves, like beyond the Belmont, we have the Travers Stakes. We're gonna be looking forward to the Breeders' Cup. And, we've actually reloaded on 2 more horses. Like, Hot Rod Charlie has given us the ability to like, go back to the well and get 2 more. And like, we're excited for, rounds 4 and 5. And, we're pumped for what opportunities those might bring us as well. And if it nets us nothing, and, those end up being more Tell Me I'm Pretties, it's been a fun ride. And, we're going to be just as stoked for the maiden races at Santa Anita that are for $40,000 as we were for the Kentucky Derby, which we were running for $3 million. Like, it's just the rush of the 2 minutes from the time that gate opens to the horses cross the wire is unparalleled, and we really live for it.
So I have a question, Pat, maybe you can take this one. So you don't have to be a math whiz to figure out that $300,000 was the prize for Hot Rod Charlie showing in the Kentucky Derby. So 25% of that is $75,000 for Boat Racing LLC. But when you guys have your horse in a race, do you bet just to win? Do you bet across the board, win, place, and show? What type of wagering do you do on your own horse? And what did you do at the Kentucky Derby?
So I am the loser. I'll go back to the Louisiana Derby that told the Breeders' Cup that told these guys, hey, we have enough on the line. We're 94-1. We did this. We're in Lexington together during a time when the rest of the nation is impacted in a horrible way. Like, that's a win, right? But my mom ended up putting 5 across the board and won like $300. So again, I apologize to the guys that I promised I won't ever, tell you not to bet on the horse, because you would have won a lot of money, obviously. But I think my always opinion in this whole endeavor is we got enough on the line, Scott. Like, betting doesn't really do anything in terms of making the experience all the better. However, I'll say, our kind of fun-loving, fun member of Boat Racing LLC is Dan Giovacchini, and certainly he has not spared any opportunity to put some money on Hot Rod Charlie, whether it was his maiden race, the Breeders' Cup, Louisiana Derby, or the Kentucky Derby. And I know he won't stop going forward.
Riley, it's funny because I know exactly what Pat's talking about, right? You guys have enough invested emotionally in owning this horse that you don't need to bet a penny on it to win, place, or show. Because I'm literally watching the Derby on Saturday with my son, Jack, who's 16 years old, and I'm going crazy. I'm yelling at the screen, come on, Hot Rod John. I'm going nuts. Why? Because I know and love you guys. I mean, I have no ownership stake. I didn't bet any money on the race. I just wanted Hot Rod Charlie to finish in the money because of you guys. So I know exactly what Pat's talking about.
I'll even add to that, Scott. I think one of the biggest blessings that we've experienced the last 5 weeks, certainly more in the last week, is just being reached out to by the Brown University community and the Brown football community. I can list on 2 hands easily those people and many, many more just off the cuff. I think of Davies Bassett, George Pine, Mike Bernhardt, the Gallagher boys, Justin, Drew, and Brendan, Coach Kelleher, Coach Estes, Coach Verzone. I mean, I could go on and on and on. And so it's just special what we have here in Providence. It's special what we have on that field at Barrelson Field. This community that Brown brings, this community that Brown football brings. Certainly I'm biased, but I don't see, Harvard or Princeton or Cornell going to the Kentucky Derby. So it's pretty obvious for anybody out there thinking about potentially going to another school to play football at another school. If you go to Brown and you play football at Brown, you'll be going to the Kentucky Derby and years later.
Riley, I read this week where it looks like Hot Rod Charlie will not run on the Preakness. Tell us, number one, is that true? And number two, tell us behind the decision-making and the thinking there to not run him in the Preakness.
Yeah, that's correct. Running in these races for horses, it's very, very taxing. They put everything they have into it. And running a horse 2 weeks back, which is the Preakness is 2 weeks after the Kentucky Derby, is super, super taxing on a horse. And us doing right by the horse and thinking about the long term, we wanted to give him the extra 3-week break. So it's the Kentucky Derby, 2 weeks later the Preakness, 3 weeks later the Belmont. So we're going to give him the entire 5 weeks to rest up, train, get ready, get his mind right. I'm sure we'll go to a few of his workouts at Santa Anita leading up to it, and it also let us bring him home to LA as opposed to throwing him on a very well maintained bus to New York. So that was the thinking there, and we couldn't be more excited to get to Belmont here in 4.5 weeks.
So Q, to say I'm a horse racing novice would probably be an understatement, but I do know this: the Preakness is the shortest and the Belmont is the longest of the Triple Crown races. And how does that affect your horse, right? Would you consider Hot Rod Charlie a great closer and coming off the pace type of horse, which would, I guess, be better for the Belmont? Is he more of a sprinter, which would, I guess, set up for a better short race like the Preakness? How would you describe Hot Rod Charlie in terms of what type of racing horse he is?
That's a great question. He's breeding in horse racing is considered to be practically everything. So his breeding would indicate that, one, he's a turf horse, so he should be better running on grass than running on dirt. And two, he should be a better sprinter than a distance runner, which he's neither of those two things. So with the Belmont stretching out to 1.5 miles, which is 12 furlongs, which I didn't realize how long a furlong was until like 6 months ago. So calling yourself a novice, you don't really have to be an expert to get into it. But we think that 12 furlongs, it really benefits us. We think Hot Rod Charlie has that grit to buckle in. He'll run as long as the trainer, or as long as the jockey will let him. You can watch him in his workouts. He's supposed to only go like 6 furlongs in a workout, but he'll gallop out for another 6 afterwards because he just loves to run. He wants to be out there. He wants to be moving as fast as we'll let him. So we think that the greater distance will really benefit us. And you could see, during the Derby, he got kind of bumped there at the beginning, which kind of took away a little bit of stamina. But we feel like if he hadn't gotten bumped at the beginning, he would have had a really good chance to close there and maybe even gone a couple extra furlongs, which would have been requisite for him had it been the Belmont.
So, Pat, I did get a chance to see Coach Estes a couple of days ago. Unfortunately, under sad circumstances, his mom passed away. So I went up to New Hampshire to the wake, and you're right. He's so proud of you guys. I'm glad to hear that he texted you. And I know, Riley, you sent your condolences, and he thanked you for that. That was very nice. But he was just so happy to see what's going on with you guys. And in fact, Abbott Burrell, your position coach, same thing. I saw him there, and Coach Burrell says hello. So I'm sure you miss Coach Burrell and Coach Estes and some of the guys.
I don't miss not getting to my magic spot and getting yelled at, but everything else, I miss those guys a ton. I mean, again, they were second fathers to all of us. Every year they bring in 35 new kids that don't have, could use a father in Providence, Rhode Island, on College Hill. And so, again, there's nothing like a coach that you spend 4 years with in college, especially within football. And so love those guys with all of me. And again, condolences and thoughts with Coach Estes and his family. But knowing how strong he and his family are, I'm sure they'll get through it.
And Q, I'm sure you don't mind getting yelled at by Coach Leslie.
But in all honesty, those are the experiences that made me closer with my teammates, me closer with my classmates, and that's where the bonds were formed, is on the football field. I mean, we're 35 strangers that never would have met each other if it weren't for the opportunities that the Brown coaching staff had given us. I mean, Pat, Riley, obviously very talented football players. I was a walk-on. They kind of more or less tolerated me for 4 years, but I appreciate that they let me suit up and be a glorified tackling dummy for 4 years, because had they not let me do that, I never would have met, 34 of my best friends on the planet. I never would have been part of the illustrious history of Brown football for the tens of thousands who were there before me and the hundreds who have been after me and the tens of thousands who will come after me. So, I mean, the opportunity that we had at Brown University is unparalleled and has unlocked so many doors for us professionally, socially, and we're just really thrilled to be able to give back and, you know, give kudos to the program that really was the genesis of our relationships and the genesis of this endeavor.
Q, you're a humble guy, because I don't care if you played every snap for 4 years or you didn't in your case. First of all, being a member of the scout team and giving your teammates a great look, okay, that is hugely important. And number two, you were a guy that kept it light. You were a joker. You kept smiles on teammates' faces when sometimes things weren't so easy. So don't underestimate what you meant to your team. You meant a ton.
Well, I appreciate that. And it was, you know, we talk about this often too, is that like the five of us, Riley and I played offense, Pat, Eric, Gio played defense. Like we took those practice reps like seriously. Like I never let Eric live it down when I burned him on a jet route, which were like very regularly. And like, you know, Pat would never let me live it down when he rung my bell really hard in like a goal line, you know, shoot route or whatever. And like, I mean, those are the moments that we cherish forever. And like those small competitions, you know, really were kind of what our day culminated to. When like, you know, we're getting our butts kicked at morning lift, we're getting our butts kicked in class, you go out to practice, and it's like your first opportunity to kind of impose your will on somebody. So we took those opportunities seriously. And like you said, I mean, football's the ultimate team game. You know, you're 100% dependent on your teammate to be the best version of yourself, of themselves, so you can be the best version of yourself. And as a collective whole, you can be the best version of your entire team. And whether you're, you know, on the sideline handing out water to people, or if you're the one in the end zone holding the ball for 6 points, or you're on a scout team, you're really contributing to a cause greater than yourself. And in football and in sports in general are a really good mirror for life and life lessons. And you know, we're really fortunate to be able to have the platform at Brown University to learn those lessons in a way that's very formative to us.
Riley, I brought up the Cornell game earlier because I remember vividly to this day them trying to execute an onside kick, and you just stepped up, grabbed it, and didn't break stride, ran it right into the end zone like 45 yards or whatever it was for a touchdown. But who was your position coach? Was it Coach Estes, or who coached receivers from 2011 through 2014?
So I had Coach Archer.
Okay.
At first, and then Coach Estes transitioned into the role, and Coach Zayogas helped him out there at the end as well, and loved it.
What are your fondest memories of, you know, being a part of the team?
I'd say my fondest memories are sitting in the locker room before or after practice. Like Koiser said, I mean, we gave it our all out on the field, and we like to talk trash before and afterwards, and just like I think that's where the bonds were formed a lot, was you know, before and after practice, sitting in the locker room, joking with people, listening to music. Like those were some of the best times, and those are some of the times that I miss the most when thinking back on our 4 years.
Pat, speaking of locker rooms, have you guys had a chance to see the new locker room? It's a far cry from hanging out with the rats in the old football locker room at the OMAC.
It made us tougher, Scott. And we also got that old, what was it, weight room also that was underneath the pits.
Yep.
Which was scary as well. It's like a petri dish in there. But no, seriously, we did have the fortune to go back for the Brown-Princeton game, I believe in 2016, the year after we graduated, and I was able to see the new football offices. I don't think the locker room was done yet. So really, really excited for the new players. It's just awesome. Again, you know, that's not a reason to make a great team, but it certainly helps get some recruits in.
Yeah, no doubt about it. Q, so how do you manage your day job and, you know, going to the Kentucky Derby following, you know, the trials and tribulations of Hot Rod Charlie? It can't be easy.
No, it's, you know, what I'll say is, first of all, we're probably the only owners in the Kentucky Derby who had to take PTO to go and watch our horse run. So we were certainly an anomaly there, but I'll speak on behalf of myself. I work for Lyft. I'm the operations manager for the bikes and scooters platform here in LA. And my boss, David, was very gracious and understood, hey, this is a once in a lifetime opportunity. You know, you take the time that you need Wednesday, Thursday, Friday to go out and do the things you need to do with the people you need to be with, and just live it up and enjoy that experience. But I know that for a lot of us, it was very demanding to say, hey, you know, I need to basically do 5 days worth of work in 3 days so that I can get this Thursday and Friday to myself and to my friends in Louisville. But, you know, it certainly has been fun to, you know, get shout outs or texts from people, you know, close friends, distant friends, or even people I haven't talked to in a long time who have been very supportive. And in fact, Professor McNally, who's the director of the BEO program, which all 5 of us graduated from back in 2015, shot us like a very, very nice note earlier today just to say, hey, really love seeing you guys out there and doing big things. And, you know, he didn't have to do that, but it's really indicative of what, you know, our people at Brown and then also in our professional and personal lives are, you know, we have a really great support system, which we're really fortunate for.
So Riley, last week on the podcast, I had Professor Hazeltine. I figured, I mean, he's made such an impact on so many, not just student athletes, but students' lives at Brown University. And I figured who better to have on than him to talk about his 60 plus years at Brown University. But after we recorded the podcast, he wanted to get some information on you guys, and you were the only one who I had contact information on. So I gave him your number. I don't know if he had a chance to text you or call you or not, but he was looking forward to talking to you and congratulating you guys.
He hasn't reached out yet, but I'm looking forward to it, man. What a great individual that guy is. I took a couple of his classes. I think Patrick and Alex might have been in both of them as well. But that guy, man, just represents Brown University so well. And he was one of my favorite professors while I was there. So if you're listening, Barrett, you have my phone number. Give me a call. I'm happy to talk my ear off.
All right.
Riley, do you think you'll do a case study on Boat Racing LLC?
That's a great idea.
Amazing. That'd be amazing. What not to do with your money as soon as you graduate.
All right, Pat. So riddle me this. I think inquiring minds want to know, did you guys get to rub elbows with some celebrities, Tom Brady or whoever at the Derby, or just too busy and too focused on what your horse was doing?
We were very, very focused on our friends and family, right? Like that's, again, we talked a lot about, you know, why we were there, who got us to those points, right? Definitely all those people, the 165 people and the hundreds of texts we got. So we wanted to focus on that. You know, I'd be lying though if we didn't have some really, really cool experiences. So we were live on SportsCenter for a live hit for, I want to say 30 seconds. We did a podcast with that same individual who was on SportsCenter with us, Marty Smith. Just the salt of the earth individual, you know, a Southern individual who, you know, just focuses on what matters. He focuses on, you know, integrity, he focuses on people who have passion, he focuses on people who work hard, and absolutely loved our story. You know, we couldn't really understand why at the beginning, but, you know, he puts it into such amazing words. And, you know, we talked to him on a podcast for 60 minutes, I believe, and he spoke all about how cool these 5 guys, what we were doing was just so amazing and so unique, right? Because again, he talked a lot about everyone does the text chain, everyone goes to Kenny Chesney concerts, but who actually like puts their money where their mouth is and say, we are going to commit to this in a big way, both financially. And it all started with, you know, really getting Alex to say, hey, you know, I know you're kind of hesitant about this, but it's all that whole idea of one more beer, Alex, just trust us, trust the boys. We're going to make this happen. It's going to be fun and you will regret it if you don't do it, and we're not going to do it without you. So that was probably my highlight, is certainly meeting Marty Smith and, you know, seeing or being on SportsCenter with these guys for about 30 seconds.
So among other things, the pandemic robbed you guys of coming back for your 5th year reunion. That's usually a good one. Are you guys now targeting the 10th year reunion to come back for campus dance, or is your mentality, nope, next time they have campus dance and a graduation, I'll be back at Brown?
Well, I mean, we just had a 6th year reunion at the Kentucky Derby not too long ago, so that was pretty amazing.
Perfect.
But I think we'll absolutely be targeting the 10th year reunion. We were all making the plans to be out in Providence last year, and we're super bummed not to be able to do so. And so to get back and see not only our teammates but our other our friends and classmates, it's very special and important to us. So I would assume we're all back there for the 10th year.
Well, super proud of you guys. Congratulations. Like I said, anybody that's associated with Brown football and that knows you guys, Could not have been more happy for you. Good luck in the Belmont in a few weeks, and thanks for joining us on the Brown Bears podcast.
Thanks, Scott. Ever
Thanks,
true.
Scott.
Appreciate it.
Ever true.
Let's
Thank
go,
you.
Chuck.
You've been listening to the Brown Bears podcast on the Brown Bears Sports Network. For more information on Brown University athletics, visit brownbears.com.